Well, good afternoon. Happy Monday. Today's homeschooling show is going to be about school choice and specifically education savings accounts or education scholarship funds or whatever you want to call it, even vouchers for that matter. Should homeschoolers use them or not? What is Deb's take on this controversial topic? Most of you who follow me, follow my content, read my articles, etc., know that I am against these school choice programs because I believe they are going to grow government and threaten homeschooling, quite literally. So I have said often that we in the homeschooling community need to push back on them, not because we think public schools are great, not because we like them taking our money and want them to keep it, not because of any of those reasons, but we just see how badly government has mangled education, and we don't think they should have their fingers in private pies. Now, that said, I've been giving a lot of thought lately to the people who are, through no fault of their own, stuck in states where school choice either has already become a reality or is on the verge of it. As we get closer to the election in 2024, you're going to see more states probably adopt it. The grand irony is people living in solidly blue states with very, very strong unions may be the last ones to fall with a full blown ESA program because their unions are so strong and they, even though the schools are terrible, they're able to push back and control everything. But I think they're going to go first with the red states, and then it will end up being all of the states if I had to make a prediction. So the question may be, well, what do I do? Should I continue to oppose it? If it comes to pass or it's already passed in my state, should I shun it and not use it? And what I'm going to say to you, and it might surprise you, is you're not expected to be a martyr to your principles. Defend them and defend them and defend them as hard as you possibly can while the programs have not yet passed, because that is certainly your best protection, is to not have it ever come to pass. Just like the best protection from government misusing our money through the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, any of the other programs, Obamacare, was to not have them be programs in the first place. Once they become programs and they are a reality and you can't change it, nothing you do, it's been passed. And we know there's no putting toothpaste back in the tube. When it comes to entitlements, once they happen, you're not getting them undone without, well, I just don't even know how. Honestly, I think you're at a point of like almost civil war. So then you have to make a decision based on your own needs and your own family and your own willingness to stay vigilant. Vigilant. If you believe that you have a chance of continuing to homeschool even with the money, get your kids through the program, and then, it's not the restrictions they might pass are probably not going to negatively impact you. Maybe they make your decision based on that. If you think that you can continue to push back and make for better safeguards or restrictions on government in terms of what they may and may not regulate, what kind of testing they may and may not require, is it a crime, for example, if you don't do the test, or is it just one of those things where you're supposed to do tests and if you don't do it, they could come to your house, they could come and find you? Like here in North Carolina, I'm supposed to administer a nationally recognized standardized test at the end of each year. I don't. I mean, someone might now see this and go, oh my God, we're going to call the Department of blah, blah, blah. But I'll jump off that bridge when I get to it. In other words, I'm refusing to comply in my own little passive way. I'm also not taking government money. So, I mean, that's a different issue, but that's without the money. So without the money, they regulate my homeschooling, as they probably do in your state, or whoever, Crystal, they probably do in Washington State. I don't know, but there are probably some regulations that you have to administer a test. Now, some parents are like, I want to administer a test. I just want to pick the test. I want it to be a test that I value and think has, good results or whatever. And then that's fine. And then you can both, meet the government's regulation and address your own needs. Yay, twofer. But if you're of a mind to say, no, they're requiring this specific test, which is a state test, which is, means I'm going to have to teach differently, which means I'm going to have to focus on a bunch of crap and stress out my kids. And, and as they're now just saying in Texas, if your child doesn't pass this state test, which is so dramatically different than anything we homeschoolers would teach to, if they don't pass it for 2 years running, they can shut you down and prevent you from ever homeschooling again. I mean, this is Texas, the so-called red state. It's insane, absolutely insane what they're already putting into action when it comes to their ESA program. I think in that case, you really have to fight hard or consider not taking the money, because that puts you at risk. I mean, that really, really does. If you don't want to teach the test and you're not 100% sure your kid can pass their state version of the test. So I would caution people, go look at the current Texas test. Make sure it doesn't contain a lot of stuff you don't want to teach at all, so that your kid's not going to have, they're going to look at it and be like, I'm not answering all these, like, BLM kind of questions or diversity questions or questions about a history I didn't teach because it's like junk revisionist history. Who knows what it contains? But whatever it is, you need to make sure your kid can pass it with flying colors, because without you changing up your curriculum, because otherwise they could bring down, on you. And you're on their radar because you've taken the money, and you can't then go, I won't take the money, I want to continue to homeschool. They're going to prevent you from homeschooling. They're going to decide that you are negligent. So, and as I said, that's Texas. So you have to read the fine print. And if taking the money puts you at immediate risk, as that one does, then my advice is absolutely not. Then it's not a matter of you're martyring yourself for principle. Then you're like protecting your right to continue to homeschool by not exposing your child to the regulation that goes along with taking the money. So you must read the bills. And then, as I said, prepare to be very vigilant, prepare to become a member of HSLDA so you have legal representation if they decide to come after you at any point in time. Make sure that you form, as part of your community building, you form a community of other homeschooling parents whose purpose is not for teaching kids and, them playing and stuff, but the purpose is strategize and go to your local legislators and put pressure on them and write letters. I mean, you have to become almost a little homeschool moms for liberty kind of a deal in your state, and work with HSLDA perhaps to do that. But you're going to have to become, once those things pass, if you decide you're going to take the money, honestly, I'd say you have to do it even if you don't decide to take the money. But if you take the money, 100% for sure you have to do this. You are saying, I now probably need to become an activist for homeschooling. I can't just take the money and run and go back home and hope for the best, especially if your kids are young. Now, if you get junior in high school, senior high school, a couple of years, I mean, you could probably squeak by. By the time they get new regs passed, your kids will be done. But if you've got a kid in elementary school, this is your life now, which is why you need to fight them in the first place, but so they don't get them passed. I know it makes you kind of a weird ally of unions, which is creepy and horrible, but you're not really an ally of unions. You're just an ally of individual liberty. And you happen to be on the same side, just not for the same reason. If, on the other hand, you decide, that's fine with me, I actually want to be an activist for that because this thing isn't going away. I want my grandkids to be able to have homeschooling. I want to, I'm going to homeschool and take full responsibility for that. Then there's no reason not to take the money. Like I said, don't martyr yourself. So if you're already of a mind to be like, I was already going to be an activist against government regulation and homeschooling, or I already am. And, just the fact that we lost our battle and they passed ESAs isn't going to change that. I don't see it as a burden. I don't see it as a risk to my family. I don't see it as anything that I wouldn't do anyway. There's nothing immoral about taking it. It's still your money. I mean, part of it anyway. It's still on principle. Why shouldn't you? They're taking it from you, and they're undoubtedly going to raise your taxes. If not this year, then next. They're undoubtedly going to still pass school bonds because the unions are like, they're taking all this money from the public school and I need more money. So they're going to pass public school bonds. We're getting ready in North Carolina tomorrow, our election. They're going to pass probably another one for CMS. They've never defeated a bond measure ever. I've been here 18 years. We've had one almost every year and almost every year. And every time they pass. So I fully expect it to pass, and my property taxes are going to go up again. So I'm just being honest with you. It's not an easy answer to say, don't take the money. It's like, I can tell you that would be really rude and judgmental of me to say, make yourself a martyr to the cause, especially because you're going to be paying those taxes How are you going to squeak out of that? You don't get to opt out of that. So they're taking it from you. Just like I said, Social Security. People would say all the time, Ayn Rand is a hypocrite because she took her Social Security. I'm like, did she have an option to opt out of it? No, she did not. Did she have an option to say, like, I want to unilaterally not have Social Security in my city, town, state, family, whatever? No, she did not. So why should she not take it? And furthermore, if taking it further depletes, the system, so to speak, in other words, they're now like, oh, there went the money. Like, they don't get to keep it and redistribute it to somebody else who's not educating their kid properly when you are, then you can think about it that way too. That just be like, all right, well, I know that I'm going to raise a kid with proper logic and citizenship, and they're going to understand that this is not what you want, that we want a separation of, economy and government, school and government. We don't want either a group of government officials or a group of, billionaire cronies running our lives. Pick your oligarch. Then if you're going to use it to raise a citizen like that, then you're actually doing something good with it, better than the investment they're making in the public school, and better than the investment that they're making in whoever's going to take it and go off to the Bill and Melinda Gates School of the Better Humanity or whatever is going to pop up now that they have all this money. So in essence, you can rationalize it that way if you need to. And no, I'm not just making excuses. Like, I'm currently not using any government money for my homeschool. If they came along and said, oh, here's a bunch of money you can use because everybody's taking it, I've got it almost junior in high school. I still wouldn't take it just because it's not going to really help me, and it's not going to deplete. My taxes are still pretty small relative to some other people. So I don't think it's going to really put a kink in their, in their plans. So I wouldn't want to go through, honestly, the paperwork. It's a process to do it. But for those people who are in elementary school, I would say do what you have to do. If this actually helps you be able to run your homeschool and take a breath and not be like, I know I got to hire childcare and I got to go work, or I've got to work from home and I can't really do what I want to do because if I had this extra money, that would make it very helpful. Who the hell am I to tell you don't do it? Right? The only thing I would say is own it. I mean, like, be that activist in whatever small way you can, and own what you're doing and why you're doing it. Be very clear on why you're doing it, and don't accidentally get sucked into it's moral for them to have the program in the first place mindset. That's the only thing I would say is it doesn't change the principles. It doesn't change the morality of the program. But since you don't make the rules, you voted against it, or you would have voted against it, or you would have voted against people who want it, then you're not compromising your ethics at all to go ahead and say, all right, sign me up. But what I've seen happen sometimes, and it really makes me sad, is I've seen people, rather than just saying, this is what I'm doing and it's not a contradiction, and they flipped over to, well, and it's really actually good, and I think we need to have blah, blah, and start singing the praises of it and telling, other people in other states that they should have it too, and start voting accordingly to keep it. In other words, if along comes a politician and says, this is too ripe for corruption, and I think we need to end this ESA program. We needed to cut this off before it gets out of hand, because we're going to scale back on all the public funding for these schools because they suck. And you go, oh no, I'm going to go vote for the other guy so they don't take my coupon. They don't take my funding. Now you're part of the problem. Now that's a totally different story. If you start getting attached to your government cheese to the point where you start acting and voting against, and this is what has happened in America over the decades and decades of why these programs are so entrenched, is that people go, well, I had to pay into it and I'm not going to get blah, 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 blah. It's like, are you for it in principle or against it in principle? Are you still working to get rid of it if you possibly can, so that more money can be flowing into the economy and more money can be, and with fewer openings for corruption and control? Or are you willing to just acquiesce because you're getting something, temporarily out of it? That's what we've done. That's what we've done since the 16th Amendment, pretty much. Soon as they decided it was perfectly fine to tax productivity, and they start having a justification to tax all the things. People started coming up with rationalizations as to why it was moral. Not why they were like, all right, well, guess I got to go with the program and continue to fight from the inside. It was, no, it's really good. We need to actually increase it. We need to broaden it. Actually, I think, whatever. And on that, I'm unyielding. Unyielding. If you came to me today at the age of 57 and you said, would you vote for a candidate who would do away with your Social Security and your Medicare? 100% I would, yes. Because I still have more faith in these last years of my life to take my own money that I would still have in my pocket. That would be tens of thousands of dollars for our household that we would still have. And we're used to not spending, right? The government just took it. No interest loan. And I'm going to get back like a fraction. So in a New York minute, would I be like, absolutely. So you mean from now until I'm 65? So let's say that's roughly another 7, 8 years. I can take all that money and invest it where I think it should go? Oh, hell to the yes. Same with the Medicare. Give me that money back? Oh, blah, 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 blah. I mean, like, don't take it from me in the first place. Even if you kept every red cent that you've taken so far, I would still do better. Most people would. The only people who wouldn't are people who are like already retired. And there's like no opportunity for them to earn money. There's like, they're really stuck or they're already sick. And I wouldn't favor a plan that didn't make provisions for those people in the first place for that reason. I'm not a heartless, cruel individual who wants to just throw people, to the mercy of whatever. But if you're talking about people who still have the potential to earn or, a spring in their step, they're not currently chronically ill or dying of cancer or something like that, hell yes. And the same is true for school choice. So if it passes and you're stuck in a state, keep working against it. Even if your kids are small, don't start working for it. That would be my only comment there. Now, the plus side of taking it in those situations, as I said, are if it gives you opportunities to get better programming for your kids than you currently can afford out of pocket. That's only you can decide that. For example, if there's, a foreign language you want your kids to learn and you really want them to be in something that is taught by somebody else who knows more, or you want by the time they get to middle school or high school for them to be taught Latin by someone with a PhD in classics, and that's a little out of your reach financially, maybe use it for that. If you need or want certain travel opportunities that are educational and you couldn't possibly do it otherwise, or you'd have to go get a part-time job, these are things you might want to think about. Again, if the money was yours, if they left it in your pocket in the first place, you'd probably set it aside for that. They're not giving you that opportunity. They're funneling it through the government. On the con side, of course, is you could get very attached to that. You get very attached to, that's when people run the risk of getting attached to government cheese. So you know your morals, your values, also your kids could get attached to it. So if you use the ESA, I would strongly recommend against putting your kids in any kind of a program they're going to get attached to, like emotionally attached to, or that's going to put them on a path they can't extricate themselves from without pain for them. So let me think of an example. Let's say there is you can get them private, some kind of sporting lessons. Let's say it's horseback riding, this as an example. And they become an equestrian and they are getting really good at it. And then suddenly either you don't want to take it anymore because the restrictions are insane on the academics, or you don't want to take it anymore because, whatever, somebody comes along and you have a choice of like voting to get rid of it or voting to keep it. If you do that and they get rid of it, or there's so many restrictions you need to pull away because it's really now no different than public school, but you were using the money because money's fungible. So you were paying for your academics and then you could afford horseback riding. And you're like, okay, let's do the horseback riding. Now you got to go to your kid and say, yeah, about the horseback riding lessons. That's not a fun conversation. If they were getting so good at it, they were competitive And this could have been a way for them to put themselves into, something they can make money on. They wanted to grow up and own a horse farm or work on a horse farm or work with a horse breeder. Like, this was becoming like their thing. And they couldn't find another way to do it without paying for the privilege or whatever. Like, no scholarships, no charity drives, nothing you could do. That's going to be a tough decision. So I would strongly suggest only do it, only take the money if you know you could turn around and replace it yourself, or do without whatever it's buying if the money went away. It's a nice thing. Like, travel, it's nice. It's nice, isn't it? But if you suddenly couldn't do it anymore, like, I quit my job. I was looking forward to having had a job. I was looking forward to, now I have that exhale. I can breathe. We can maybe go on a vacation once a year somewhere other than like another part of North Carolina. And I did. I went on one vacation with my daughter on my old salary, and now it's gone. But that's okay, because my integrity matters more. It's like, it's nice to have, it's not necessary. And she understands, I understand, everybody understands that sacrificing travel for the sake of integrity was one of those things you have to do. But sacrificing that where your kid bears the brunt of it, that's what's hard. And I also know, by the way, that's one of the reasons a lot of people are stuck in public school or stuck in bad private schools, because the kid's attached to their friends. And that's their whole community. You're asking them to start completely over and they're in, middle school. You're asking them to start completely over and they're a varsity soccer player. You're asking them to start completely over and they're an actor on the stage in the theater troupe, and there isn't one outside of the school. Those are sunk costs that are really hard for people to overcome, because they're asking their kid to bear the brunt of that loss, and for the sake of, the parents' concern about their academics, which is justified. But the kid doesn't understand that. Remember, the longer they're in the public schools, the harder it is for them to conceptualize what they're missing. They don't know what they're missing. They don't know what they don't know. And that's why I do have a lot of compassion for those parents, where they're like, I know they're in 7th grade. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't envy you. It sucks. Even though my kids still wanted to come back to homeschool, they still had the push me, pull you, like, I don't know if I'm happy about this kind of feeling, at least my youngest. But that's what I would recommend. So if you're going to take it, use it for things that you could easily replace. Make sure you've got written down somewhere, like, write yourself a note. I'm taking this because I'm not a martyr. My kids are not martyrs. They might as well take it. Then I'm going to sign myself up and start a group to keep the restrictions low, or I'm going to advocate for it to be gotten rid of completely, so that, we can get the government out of education, what I wanted in the first place. I'm going to keep pushing for that, because the longer we let these programs live, the harder it will be to justify getting rid of government in education at the public school level. Why would we do that? No, for real. Like, why would anyone listen or take people seriously about get government out of public education, stop taking the money, stop paying the unions, stop paying all these people, if you've got all the people who left? And I promise you that's going to be a campaign speech someday. You wait for it. You heard it here first. Someone is going to say they're getting theirs. They're getting their piece of the government money. They're getting their ed dollars. They're getting their redistributed funds. What do they care? How can they justify getting rid of this but keeping that? And you can't. Morally, you cannot. That is an incoherent argument. So you either remain consistent in your argument even while you're taking the money, prepared to give it up, or you're a big fat hypocrite and people are absolutely justified to call you one. So that's got to write yourself notes. People tend to forget. I've met people, they forget. So that's what I have to say about that. Should you take it? Should you not? It's a complicated answer, but those are the pieces of the puzzle that matter so much. Now, beyond this topic, since I had to kind of come up with something and I didn't have anything else, Crystal, if you have any questions or anything you wanted to talk to me about, I'm here. Let me know. You can request to speak. We can talk. Since you're here, that's up to you. But I didn't have anything else really besides this. If you're wondering why it came up in my brain, it's because I may have the opportunity to work as a virtual teacher for some classes for someone in West Virginia who runs an organization that has mostly homeschool parents who do not take ESA funds, but there are a few who do. And so I was very transparent and I said, I'm opposed to that. I'm opposed to ESA funds and I'm opposed to ESA programs. And she said, so am I. And so was I. And she fought and fought and fought those Hope scholarships and lost. But prior to it passing, she had set up a service for homeschool parents to match parents and teachers and different things. It was partly during COVID. So parents were like, my kid's home, but I don't want to do the school thing. I want to do something else. And she was able to find teachers and match them up to have sort of private classes and so on. And so then once the thing she was fighting against passed, people were coming to her with the money in hand and going, can I use it? So she set up all the paper, all the things to like make it possible for them to do it, but continues as part of her activity ongoing to fight any further restrictions to keep it as free money as possible. Like, just, you don't get to say what we do. And if it came to it where somebody got elected and said, we're going to end the program, she would support it. Even though that's why she always builds up her business. She's like, I'm always maintaining. If I can't maintain without those people, then I have no business being in business. She's not trying to run a business only on ESA dollars. So she made that note to herself. She did what I'm describing and said, where's my morality? Where are my values? What is it that I'm trying to do here? Okay, now we're in this situation. I'm not going to turn people down and say, you can't have access to our classes because I don't want to take your ESAs. And one of the reasons I'm opposed to school choice is how many people like her are there, do you think, who run homeschool school, classes, curriculum development companies, whatever. How many people do you think are going to be rock solid in their philosophy enough to do that work and put themselves through that? How many of them, even if they do, are going to be willing to stick to it as the economy gets worse? See, I don't know if she will. I mean, I hope. But my point is, it's a lot that you're going to have to, integrity is expensive. Those were her words to me. She said, integrity is expensive. Because I was transparent. This is why I quit my last job, just so you know. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I don't stand for. I live not by lies. I will not pretend. And she said, integrity is expensive. I've learned the hard way. So I keep trying to find people like that to associate with. And I would say if you're a homeschooler in a state where there are going to be ESAs and you feel like you might have to or want to take them in that instance, and if you really feel like you have to, I would definitely caution against it. But if you, like I said, if you keep being active, make sure those bills don't get crazy, maybe it's okay. So let's see, you said, and to think Texas had almost no requirements to homeschool. I know, isn't that weird? Texas has nothing. Like, go homeschool, knock yourself out. But when it comes to their ESA plan, it looks like this. And you can see the red part. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Requires student who accepts the ESA to be required to take the state assessment or a nationally norm reference test that crosswalks to the state assessment. Onus on parent for students to sit for the exam. Students who do not perform satisfactorily. What does that mean? That's not even a pass and a fail. So I misstated it. I said students who don't pass. Students who do not perform satisfactorily. Isn't that a lovely vague word? What are they going to decide? You have to perform at the 80th percentile? 90th percentile? 75th percent? Like, on the assessment 2 years in a row are disqualified from the program. Okay, so maybe you could still homeschool, but you're not going to get ESA money. TEA, so that's the Texas Education, whatever it is, Authority or something, shall ensure that each child participating in the program is annually administered each assessment. That means they're going to follow up. It says ensure, shall ensure. Ours just says parent has to give a test. There's nothing that says North Carolina Department of Public Instruction shall ensure that you did, because that would mean we'd have to submit it, which we don't. It's just you're on the hook for giving them a test. Okay, thanks. I don't do it. When they were little, and they were homeschooling, I had them do like Woodcock Johnson, and I had them do a couple of tests. So I wanted to know like how they were doing, but I picked the test. It wasn't, any state education standards test. It was more about their verbal and their quantitative skills and things like that, and how they were doing. Okay, so then it says requires CPA to audit program participants. What? They're going to be audited? So means they're going to audit your expenditures, what you spend it on. Want to go through an audit every year for just that? Like, where's all your receipts? Where all's your stuff? I mean, this is a fair amount of bookkeeping. And if they say something's out of line, or you didn't save something, or they don't agree with an expenditure, you may have to pay the money back. If the child leaves the ESA program, local education agency is entitled to receive an amount equal to the amount in the child's account returned to the state. So if you didn't spend it all that year, or didn't spend it on things they thought you should spend, or you leave the program and you got more, like you leave in January and they gave you money for a year, you got to give it back. So careful that you we're going to prepay that travel because, we got the year's worth of money. So we're going to go take that educational trip to like the Grand Canyon or whatever. And it's okay. And then, for whatever reason, the kid goes back to school, they leave the program, who knows, better be prepared to pay it back. That looks to me like, it says here, homeschool students receive $1,000. Okay, you're not traveling very far, but they receive $1,000. And they tell you what's covered. Accredited private school tuition and fees, higher education tuition and fees, textbook construction materials required by school, costs related to blah, 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 blah. And this is in the state that has the, least restrictions, but this is what they put in there for ESAs. I think even Arizona doesn't have this much. So I would say be careful. Be careful for people who use it in Texas, and be careful to other people in other states who use it. If you don't, strictly speaking, need it, and it's not going to murder you to take, then don't, I don't take anything. I think for my eldest daughter, I could have taken some money because she had an IEP. And in North Carolina, if your student is classified as special needs for certain reasons, then you can get certain kinds of money to defray those kind of therapies or whatever. And it was so minimal because of what her issues were that it was like she's not getting ongoing therapy for it. It's just she had an IEP for school and 504 and then an IEP. But I was like, no, I don't want to go through paperwork and I'm going to justify my existence. I'm not doing it. And my youngest doesn't have any of that, so we don't take money. There isn't money to take. So, that said, I know people who are doctor shopping in the state to get their kids classified so they can get money. They're not friends of mine. I don't respect that. I think that's absolutely shitty, but I know people do it. I know they do it. And the reason I know they do it is I see them sometimes in like the homeschool groups out there saying, especially since COVID, it really didn't happen before COVID, because before COVID, homeschool parents were homeschool parents. After COVID, it's become a totally different breed. There's still homeschool parents, and then there's parents who thought that COVID virtual schooling was homeschooling, and now they're kind of like, they don't want to drive through carpool, and they actually kind of like that the kid's around all the time, but they kind of still want to pay for somebody to educate their kid, and they want to put them in an online program, but that costs money, but then this, and they want a little extra money. So they're actually asking for doctors that are, very willing to write them the letters that they need to have special needs children. Yeah, I don't really have nice words for them. And that's one of the things that these programs encourage, is that kind of corruption. That's why I oppose them solidly. Anyway, that's what I've got for you today. I am still working on pulling together the 3 streams from Friday to make one continuous video. I will get it loaded up today. And then this one has been recording without incident. Luckily, there's no problem with it. I don't know why the screen share didn't work. Probably because I have 17,000 windows open, and that's my fault. I probably should have shut everything down before I came on. But there it is. If you have a request for Friday, if there's something you'd like me to talk about on Friday, please let me know in the topic requests channel, and I will get on it tonight's topic for Dissonant Dispatch. Oh, goodness. Honestly, I'm very torn. I'm still kind of thinking about it, so keep your eyes peeled. I'm not sure yet. I usually try to come up with these on Sunday. I had something I thought I wanted to do, but the people I wanted to join me can't. So I'm on my own. So now I have to do something different. I have to pivot. And I haven't decided. So stay tuned. I'll try to get that up within the next couple of hours. Thanks for coming, and I will see you on Friday. Bye.